Purpose and scope. This forensic review examines a traffic stop recorded on a law enforcement officer's body-worn camera BWC. The footage, approximately 18 minutes in duration, captures the interaction between a female officer of the Largo Police Department, Florida, and a female driver identified as Renee. The stop begins as a routine check for an invalid license but escalates to a custodial arrest following a disputed refusal to sign a citation. The driver also reports a broken arm that remains handcuffed for a portion of the encounter. The purpose of this review is to identify specific verbal exchanges that function as critical decision points, procedural failures, and potential constitutional violations. Rather than narrate every event, this review extracts a chronological sequence of quotes, each of which could serve as the thematic anchor for a legal or policy analysis. These quotes are presented in order, with brief forensic commentary explaining their significance. 2. Methodology. The transcript was reviewed in its entirety, with timestamps cross-referenced against speaker identification. Each quote selected meets at least one of the following criteria: A. It reveals an information asymmetry between officer and driver, B. It demonstrates a failure to de-escalate, C. It contains an admission of ignorance by the officer, D. It shows a disputed factual claim, or E. It reflects a use of force or disproportionality concern. Quotes are presented without tables, using plain text and italics for emphasis. Following the chronological presentation, a concluding section synthesizes forensic findings. Hello. No, I pulled you over today. No. 033, Officer. The driver's honest no sets up an entire stop built on information asymmetry. She doesn't know why she was stopped, and the officer will later admit she doesn't know the specific reason either. This opening exchange creates an expectation of explanation that the officer never fulfills, violating basic procedural justice. Okay. So, your license is invalid. Do you have it on you yet? 039, Officer and driver. The tension between a physical license that looks valid and a database that says otherwise highlights how bureaucratic errors or lagging updates can criminalize an unknowing driver. The officer's failure to acknowledge the driver's physical license as potential evidence of good faith is a missed opportunity to de-escalate. According to your tag, yeah. Do you have it on you? 046, Officer. The officer's hesitation reveals she is working off incomplete information, trusting the tag more than the driver's word, a common but risky practice. This verbal stumble is a rare moment of candor on BWC, revealing that the officer herself is uncertain. Do you know why it might be invalid? 057, Officer. This probes the driver's state of mind scienter for a potential DWLS charge, but the officer never follows up to verify whether the driver actually received proper notice. Without that follow-up, the question becomes rhetorical theater rather than genuine investigation. I can check for you. Just give me a second. 109, Officer. Dramatic irony, the officer asks for a second to check, but later when the driver asks for a second to compose herself, that request is denied and leads to handcuffs. The unequal treatment of a second exposes a double standard in whose timeline controls the encounter. 605 Let's get him info. 605 124, Officer to dispatch. The call sign 605 represents the hidden radio world where officers often decide on arrest before the driver understands what is happening. This parallel conversation, invisible to the driver, erodes any notion of a transparent process. Does my RO have any priors for DWLS rifles? 132, Officer to dispatch. The transcription artifact DWLS rifles likely DWLS violations shows the officer already building a case for arrest based on potential priors before she has even fully explained the suspension. Asking for priors before establishing the current violation suggests a presumption of guilt rather than an objective assessment. All right, Miss Renee. So, your license has been suspended since April, first of all. 159, Officer. Naming the driver humanizes her, but giving only the date April without a reason leaves the central question unanswered. The use of the driver's first name creates false intimacy while withholding the information she most needs. For what, so you have like a, can you turn the car off for me, actually 207, driver and officer. The driver's for what is the core question of the stop. The officer never answers it, instead changing the subject to turning off the car. Redirecting the driver's legitimate question is a form of conversational control that escalates frustration. There's no way this, why was he trying to open her trunk? 224, officer aside. This odd aside reveals a chaotic, multi-actor scene where even the primary officer is distracted, adding to the driver's confusion. Off-camera actions, such as another officer approaching the trunk, undermine the primary officer's control and the driver's sense of safety. So the tag, there's a cease tag order on your car. Case tag. Case tag. So, the tag has to come off. 231, officer. The officer stumbles over terminology case tag for cease tag while delivering the news that the license plate must be removed, an immobilizing consequence tied to an unknown reason. Verbal uncertainty about basic terms further erodes the officer's credibility and the driver's trust. Wait, what's going on? I'm explaining to you. You're not letting me tell you why. 237, driver and officer. A classic communication breakdown. The officer believes she is explaining with vague categories, while the driver hears no actual why. This mismatch in perceived explanation versus received information is a primary driver of unnecessary escalation. Okay. Well, I'm telling you that I just renewed this. 250, driver. The driver's insistence that she just renewed her insurance points to a common administrative delay, payment made, but database not yet updated. The officer's failure to verify this claim at the scene, e.g. by looking at proof of insurance, converts a fixable paperwork issue into a criminal matter. It doesn't tell me what the financial obligation, it just tells me that it is. 302, officer. A systemic admission. The officer's database flags a problem but provides no specifics, leaving everyone in the dark. This database design flaw is a training and policy failure that should prompt immediate supervisor contact, not arrest. I know you don't know what it's for, but I don't know what it's for either. 351, officer. Arguably the most damning quote: shared ignorance between enforcer and citizen, yet the arrest proceeds anyway. If even the officer cannot articulate the violation, no reasonable person would find probable cause for a custodial arrest. I bet people get upset even if they know what it's for. 439, officer. A dismissive comment that invalidates the driver's distress, missing a key de-escalation opportunity. This remark functions as a self-justification for ignoring the driver's emotional state, a known predictor of citizen resistance. So you have no idea what it's for besides that 430 approximate driver. The driver confirms the officer's ignorance, marking a moment of power inversion that can escalate tension. Once the driver realizes the officer cannot answer basic questions, her respect for the officer's authority predictably declines. Do you want to see if there's any of the car 446 fragment, driver? The driver apparently offers to let the officer search the car, a cooperative gesture that the officer ignores, missing a chance to resolve the issue. Refusing a voluntary consent search under these circumstances suggests the officer is more interested in enforcement than in fact-finding. I need a moment, please. Just to get out. 6:15, driver. The turning point, a request for a brief pause to compose herself, not a refusal. The officer treats it as defiance and escalates to handcuffs. A 30-second warning would have satisfied any legitimate law enforcement interest. Its absence is the clearest procedural error in the entire stop. Why am I being arrested? 6:20, driver. The driver's bewildered question highlights that even at the moment of arrest, the legal basis remains unclear to her and arguably to the officer. This question, left unanswered on BWC, would be devastating in any motion to suppress or civil rights action. I didn't do anything to you. 7:46 and 7:49, driver. The emotional climax repeated twice. It captures the driver's sense of injustice. Her offenses are bureaucratic, not violent or threatening. The repetition signals genuine bewilderment, not performative victimhood, and should have prompted the officer to reconsider the arrest decision. You have my broken arm cuffed. 12:19, driver. A use of force failure, handcuffing a known injury without accommodation is unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment, especially given the driver posed no threat. Continuing to cuff a broken arm after notification elevates the force from merely excessive to potentially actionable as deliberate indifference to serious medical needs. 3 cop cars and I'm not even 5 tall. 13:24, driver. The driver notes the absurd disproportionality of the police response: multiple vehicles for a small, nonviolent, injured woman. This observable disparity in force would be highly persuasive evidence of unreasonable seizure in any civil proceeding. She refused to sign the ticket, which is an offense. 1500 hours, officer on phone. The officer misstates the facts to the driver's friend, claiming a refusal. The driver immediately interrupts, I never refused to sign. The driver's live interruption, captured on BWC, directly impeaches the officer's account and would likely defeat a charge of refusal to sign. I was really trying to be nice. 8:03, officer to another officer. The officer's self-perception as nice clashes with the transcript evidence of vague explanations, dismissal of distress, and handcuffing a broken arm. This statement would be powerful rebuttal evidence if the officer later testifies that she acted with patience and compassion. I don't know why you're all marked up with black stuff all over you. 16:01, another officer. A bizarre aside that reveals the casual, almost surreal atmosphere among officers after the arrest while the driver sits cuffed in pain. This off-topic observation, captured on BWC, can be used to show a lack of urgency and professionalism during a custodial detention. Why pay people when you have a husband? 17:24, officer joking. A gendered joke about home repairs, showing how off-topic banter can signal a lack of urgency or empathy for the detained person. In a civil rights deposition, this joke would be introduced to demonstrate that officers treated the arrest as routine entertainment rather than a serious deprivation of liberty. Call the plumber. 17:35, officer recounting a story. Ironic, the officer hires a professional for a leaky pipe but refuses to call a supervisor or DMV to resolve the driver's license question. This contrast between seeking expert help for personal property and refusing it for a citizen's liberty is a potent jury argument for deliberate indifference. 28 Call the plumber. 17:35, officer recounting a story. Ironic, the officer hires a professional for a leaky pipe but refuses to call a supervisor or DMV to resolve the driver's license question. The 28 quotes extracted from the body-worn camera transcript reveal a pattern of procedural and communicative failures. First, the officer repeatedly admits that she does not know the specific reason for the driver's license suspension, stating at 3:02, it doesn't tell me what the financial obligation, and at 351, I don't know what it's for either. This shared ignorance undermines any claim that the driver received adequate notice, a due process requirement before criminal penalties attach. Second, the arrest pivots on a request for time, not a refusal. At 6:15, the driver asks, "I need a moment, please." The officer does not provide a warning, does not offer a brief countdown, and does not distinguish between emotional distress and defiance. Instead, she orders the driver out of the vehicle and applies handcuffs. The officer's own admission at 8:03, "I was really trying to be nice," is contradicted by the transcript, which shows no attempt to de-escalate or verify the driver's claim of recent insurance renewal. Third, the use of force is unreasonable under the circumstances. At 12:19, the driver states, "You have my broken arm cuffed." The officer did not ask about injuries before applying restraints. Once informed, she offers medical evaluation but does not remove or adjust the cuffs. At 13:24, the driver notes, "3 cop cars and I'm not even 5 tall," highlighting the disproportionate police presence for a nonviolent, small-statured individual. The officer herself admits at 13:28 that the driver is not a threat. "It has nothing to do with you being a threat," yet the handcuffs remain. Key forensic findings. Information failure: the officer enforced a suspension without knowing its specific basis, violating basic notice principles. Escalation error: a request for a moment to compose oneself was treated as criminal refusal, without any warning. Use of force violation: handcuffing a known broken arm on a non-threatening person constitutes excessive force under the Fourth Amendment. Graham v. Connor, 1989. Disproportionate response: multiple patrol cars and officers were deployed for a traffic stop involving no violence, flight, or threat. Factual misstatement: the officer told the driver's friend that Renee refused to sign, while the transcript shows only a request for time. 6 recommendations. Training curricula should incorporate this BWC transcript as a negative example. Officers must be required to 1. Contact a supervisor or DMV to obtain specific suspension reasons before arrest. 2. Provide a clear warning, e.g. sign in 30 seconds or be arrested before treating a delay as refusal. 3. Ask about injuries before handcuffing, and 4. Avoid calling multiple units to nonviolent traffic stops. Body camera footage should be audited for these specific failure points. 7. Certification. This forensic review is based solely on the provided transcript. No original audio or video was examined. The findings are preliminary and intended for internal training, legal analysis, or policy revision.